In order that all sentient beings may attain Buddhahood, from my heart I take refuge in the three jewels. In order that all sentient beings may attain Buddhahood, from my heart I take refuge in the three jewels. In order that all sentient beings may attain Buddhahood, from my heart I take refuge in the three jewels. Whatever the virtues of the many fields of knowledge, all are steps on the path of omniscience. May these arise in the clear mirror of intellect. O Manjushri, please accomplish this. Kiki Soso. Here we go. So first there was a statement in one of the readings about that there on page 457. It is therefore taught that during freedom from elaborations, the nature of mind is realized. It explained the nature of mind is an unconditioned phenomena which, like space, does not move or change, said in the sutras. Profound, peaceful, free from elaborations, luminous, orange color, and unconditioned. Just checking. Okay, so what does the Udana verse say? There is mendicants, that which is free from rebirth. Mendicants, what an odd term. That which is free from rebirth, free of what has been produced, made, conditioned. There is, monks, an unborn, an unbecome, unmade, unfabricated. An unborn, unbecome, unmade, unconditioned. Not brought to being, not made, not conditioned. Now, you're probably wondering what the hell's, right? The Buddha didn't talk much about the nature of nirvana, like his realization. What was it like? What did he realize? And so that was that one little, it's like a mini sutta. He does talk about it.
So these four sections were all from the same time or same event, or
They're all four translations of the same Pali.
oh, these are actually different translations, but just the same words. Okay, because
Yeah,
the way it says in the headers, it almost seemed like it was like maybe a couple of different ones. Okay,
it's supposed to be Udana 8.3.
I see. Yeah, yeah. I thought it might just be different sections or something. Yeah. Okay.
He's in the same place, right? Savati, Jeta's forest or wood,
Yeah, same place, Jettis Wood.
Anathapindika's monastery. Because there is an unborn, therefore you can know an escape from the unborn. So, an unconditioned. But this is different. So this quote on 457, footnote 1451, we looked up last time, comes from something else. In the play in full, the Lolita Vistra, which is a much later text about the life of the Buddha. But he is talking about the unconditioned. He's not talking about the nature of mind, technically. Anyway, we are now on the bottom of page 467. Stop sharing. Good evening, welcome, thank you all for being here. Nice to see you. Two of us got a haircut today, or recently. Can you tell who? Okay, the bottom of 457 is the yoga of non-meditation. It has three parts, starting with the divisions of non-meditation on the top of 468. And the divisions, as always, starts with the meaning. In the general presentations, meaning like the general presentation of Mahamudra, I guess Vajrayana perhaps in general, non-meditation is so designated because it means there are no entities that are objects of meditation upon which to focus.
Derek, can you turn up your sound just a little bit? I don't know. Thank you.
How's that? Something odd going on with my sound tonight. How's that? Still not great. Debbie's not happy with it.
Well, it's better.
It's better. We covered this, though. We ended on 469, just to be.
Thank you, Mary Beth.
Oh, that's right. We foraged into this. Thanks so much. So,
Yeah, but I wasn't here, so.
And it's logical with where you went, Derek, as a start of a little section.
no, yeah, okay. Thank you for all of that. But yeah, so let's start on the right-hand side. 469, the lesser non-meditation. We probably went through those three, right? So lesser is when, without needing to be mindful or intentionally rest. In equipoise, there is no distinction between objects of meditation and a meditator, since appearances arise as meditation. This phase continues as long as you have the slight sense of grasping at the experiences of all things being illusion-like, of all things to grasp at. Intermediate is when, free from such grasping at all things being illusion-like, your realization of non-meditation continues throughout the day and night, and you reach the very state of spontaneous existence. Post-meditative appearances are subtle aspects of the consciousness manifesting as reflexive clarity. I think spontaneous existence means enlightenment. Greater non-meditation is when those subtle aspects of the consciousnesses become wisdom. The two luminosities, we did talk about this, the child and the mother luminosities mix, and there is only that infinite expanse. And the translator put in of luminosity. Determining whether this non-meditation has been perfected or not, when the realization of non-meditation has nothing about which to be mindful, nothing to become familiar with, and experiences are purified. You have seen the essence of non-meditation. The continued presence of even a little bit of something with which to become familiar, or something to become clarity. Something to become clarity means that you have not seen the essence of non-meditation. When that realization has been purified of even the subtlest of dualistic appearances, and is never without recognition of the mind, it is always indivisible from wisdom. So that the finest or final aspect of the cognitive obscuration, of the two obscurations to Buddhahood, there's the afflictive, klesha varna, and the cognitive, jnana varna. And of the second, the remainder, the most subtlest of that, is dualistic appearance. So when realization has been purified of those and is never without recognition of the mind, it is always indivisible from wisdom. You have achieved mastery of non-meditation, not being free from subtle dualistic appearances, and having even a trace of not recognizing non-conceptuality means you have not achieved mastery of non-meditation. When, without abandoning everything, the Alaya consciousness is purified as the wisdom of the Dharma Dhatu. thoughts have arisen as meditation. That's the last of the 5 wisdoms, right? If you have any subtle dormant tendencies for conceptually grasping at a body, appearances, and mind, and even a small amount of the stains of appearance experiences, thoughts have not arisen as meditation. Fourth, when through your body becoming a rupakaya of wisdom, a rainbow body, and your mind becoming the dharmakaya, luminosity. So rainbow body is usually a feature of Dzogchen tradition. Here we have it in the Mahamudra tradition. Pure lands appear as a vast display, and you have developed the excellent qualities of non-meditation. There being any vestiges of your body and mind, or the environment and its inhabitants, as impure appearances, and having any trace of grasping, means that you have not developed these excellent qualities. When you have perfected the qualities of a Buddha, such as the strengths and fearlessnesses, you have proficiency with the conventional. If the 3 seals, maturing, sealing the body, latent tendencies, sealing appearances, consciousness, sealing the mind. If the 3 seals obscure the excellent qualities of Buddhahood, you have not purified the conventional and do not have this proficiency. 6. When, having awakened as the Dharmakaya, the inseparability of the Dhatu and wisdom, your inexhaustible ornamented wheels of awakened body, speech, and mind become uninterrupted benefit to sentient beings. You have brought the potential of the seeds of the Rupakayas to fruition. If that has not occurred, and you still rely on the Pure Lands, you have not ripened the potential of the seeds of the Rupakayas. So these are all signs, I guess, that you haven't completely fully awakened it to Buddhahood. We have again this phrase, the wheels of body, speech, and mind. I have to write a note and find out what that means.
I like that number 6 ends with, bringing uninterrupted benefit to sentient beings. Like, finally.
Inexhaustible, ornamental wheels of body, speech, and mind bring uninterrupted benefit to sentient beings. There's probably a lot of Buddhas out there who are doing that. Imagine how bad things would be without all those Buddhas doing that. Consequently, it is explained that because the perfection of the realization of non-meditation and the attainment of complete Buddhahood occur simultaneously, the full attainment of non-meditation does not occur in this lifetime. Oh, she doesn't give a footnote on that, huh? The non-meditation that occurs in this lifetime is simply a nominal non-meditation. As the exalted Tsongpo Gyare says, non-meditation is the seat of the Dharmakaya. For most, non-meditation is something nominal. So nominal means in name only, not fully actualized, not the real full, as we say, McCoy. I don't know where that phrase comes from, but furthermore, when the exalted Gomso was asked by Len Gom about the differences between the 4 yogas, he said, one-pointedness is the recognition of the nature of mind. Freedom from elaboration is the recognition of the nature of emptiness. One taste is the recognition of the nature of appearances. As for non-meditation, I have no idea. Who the hell knows? There's nothing you can say about it. It's beyond ideas, description. Thus he made no comments about non-meditation. Among the students of the exalted Pakamodrupa, it is said that 3.5 had the realization of one taste. Who's the half being? Does the footnote say 1473 who the half being is? Why there's a half a being? According to the Blue Annals, these are Jigten Sumgun, who started the Drikumpa, Bada Pukpa, interesting name, Banda Pukpa, Chojedum, and Chojedum. Did I read that right? They're spelled
There's a
slightly.
difference of an L and a G in the last.
The prefix, yeah. Also called the Four Sons of Instructions, but there's no mention of the half, 3.5. I guess one of them had only one taste, half a taste. Even the exalted good Tsongpa, the Mahasiddha or Genpa, and others would only comment up to one taste, nothing more. These days, claims to have realized one taste and non-meditation seem to be just the foolish talk and arrogance of those who have not understood the presentations of the four yogas precisely. They are not to be trusted.
It was interesting, though, that line that said that the full attainment of non-meditation does not occur in this lifetime. So, while that certainly might be true for all of us, the question of does that actually mean it doesn't occur during a lifetime? Because you would think that
Yeah,
at some point, somebody, when they actually get there, they do get there. So it either means it happens during the Bardo process, as one possibility, not during a lifetime, or it is just sort of they know the audience they're talking to, and therefore they're saying if you're reading this, it would not be happening to you.
Well, how about this? If you're reading this, you haven't achieved meditation.
That was what I was. Yeah, that's essentially what I was saying. Is that if you're reading this, you're not anywhere near the lifetime where you are going to realize it. But I'm just curious whether you have any thoughts on that or any inklings on whether it does happen during a lifetime sometime.
well, there's like a couple of things that come to mind. One is that full enlightenment in the Vajrayana tradition is said to require a certain type of practice that involves a consort, and certain Vajrayana traditions are celibate, so they can't achieve complete enlightenment while they're alive and maintain their status of being celibate. So Tsongkhapa famously did not achieve enlightenment during this lifetime because he never broke his vows, and he achieved enlightenment with the Jnana Mudra, the knowledge consort, in the intermediate state. However, many Mahamudra masters are not fully celibate, so that would not apply to them, and that's what is said of Milarepa, is that he, since he was not celibate, he had a consort and he was able to achieve enlightenment during this lifetime. His consort was Tsaringma. Remember, there's some songs or something about Tsaringma, encounters with Tsaringma. She's like a mountain, like Lokapala or something, right? Like a deity of the mountain that he stays on, which it seems was like a poetic way of referring to his girlfriend. Um, the other, the other possibility is that it's said in many traditions of Mahayana is that in order to achieve complete Buddhahood, you have to do that in Akanishta. And that entails receiving abhishekas from the Buddhas of the 10 directions. And they all arrive with a big parade of big clamor, and they grant the final abhisheka to the 10th level bodhisattva to make that person into a Buddha. So probably that's what he's referring to, is that you don't actually attain Buddhahood in the realm of desire. You attain Buddhahood outside of the realm of samsara. There's two Akanishtas. There's one that's at the top of the realm of desire, and there's one that's a beyond the three realms place. So that's my hunch, is that's what they're talking about. But it's a little it's more than a little confusing. The other wrinkle with that is that given that stage of accomplishment, you should be able to travel to that Akanishta in meditative equipoise without leaving this lifetime. So, and then come back.
So it sounds like the two examples that we have for in a lifetime would be the Buddha himself and Milarepa. You're saying that did actually do it maybe in a lifetime, and then all the other possibilities are outside of life, the bardo of life, and in some other, either another realm or another phase of the bardos.
Well, certainly the Buddha achieved it, but it's said that
You're not sure about Milarepa.
he went up to Akanishta. Well, I've also heard that there was some rumor level statement that Milarepa would have achieved complete Buddhahood in this lifetime if he had completed the ninth tower. But as you remember, his wife interceded, Marpa's wife interceded, and cut things short, and Marpa finally gave in. It was just like being so cruel. He couldn't continue to be so cruel to him, and he gave in. But he was purifying his kleshas, his veils to omniscience by building those towers. They were serving a very definite purpose. So I don't know about Milarepa. And if you read the Vajrayana descriptions of how the Buddha achieved enlightenment, he traveled up his human body. He went into the fourth jnana, and then he traveled to Akanishta in his subtle body, which is where he achieved enlightenment. So I don't know. It's a very odd statement. I'll have to ask the Lotsawa, the great Lotsawa. Okay, so the way experiences arise. So he's sort of saying that he has not experienced this. Do you get that feeling that he's he would never say that about him, whether he has. If he has, he wouldn't say it. But so it's interesting how he's reporting this. During lesser non-meditation, most dualistic appearances have been purified, and there's no need to intentionally meditate or be mindful. Everything arises as meditation. For the most part, there is no wavering from meditation. In the context of post-meditative appearances, it is explained that what is called not recognizing non-conceptuality is an aspect of the alaya consciousness, a residual ignorance or unawareness. It is a non-conceptual, neutral mind that is said to be the stains of negative propensities. It is also explained that the post-meditative mind is unable to amass karma, but it does give rise to fleeting moments of illusion-like perceiving thoughts. which have not been purified as wisdom. During dreams, there may be some slight bit of reification, which is a lack of recognition. Sort of amazing that there would still be dreams at this point.
So is that describing mistaken alia?
The reification, yes, would be the residue, the alia residue, latent propensities. During intermediate non-meditation, those subtle, illusion-like dualistic appearances are purified, and the realization of non-meditation flows throughout the day and night. With post-meditative appearances, there is the most subtle lack of recognition of non-conceptuality, which is referred to as that subtle non-conceptuality arising as a reflexive clarity. It is also called perfection that accords with the basic state. It is explained that it is the most subtle stain of negative propensities, and that it is present at night as well. Sort of odd that he had to say that it's present at night. You would think that all of the stains would be present 24/7. During greater non-meditation, that most subtle lack of recognition of non-conceptuality is purified as wisdom, natural luminosity, and the luminosity of realization mix. So those are the two luminosities, often called mother and child, here called natural luminosity, sort of the ongoing luminosity of the nature of the human being, and the luminosity of realization, which is cultivated along the path and culminates in realization. These mix, becoming an infinite expanse of wisdom. It is explained that as benefit for yourself, here's the two benefits. You attain the Dharmakaya, which is termed awakening, by perfecting its display without any limitation and gathering the interdependent connections of pure appearances for those to be trained. The reflected appearances of the Rupakayas manifest for the benefit of others. Benefit for beings arises spontaneously for as long as samsara exists. So in other words, a Buddha does not pass into a final nirvana and disappear, because samsara lasts forever. The methods for sustaining those. Although the three modes of non-meditation are, as was just presented, it is explained that the final non-meditation that arises in this lifetime is the non-meditation that is simply vivid certainty in the absence of meditative equipoise and post-meditative attainment. Through the clear understanding that your own mind is a Buddha, you gain the deep conviction that there is no object of abandonment to reject, no remedy to apply, no object to purify, no mind doing the purification, no dying, and no not dying. Other than that, no higher level of non-meditation arises. So that's, in the first sentence, he says, it is explained that the final non-meditation that arises in this lifetime, implying that he's going back to that statement about not achieving the complete non-meditation in this lifetime. But at the end of the paragraph it says, other than that, no higher level arises. As for the way to cultivate those experiences, for those of you that are ready, the Exalted Gampopa says, during the yoga of non-meditation, it is important not to get stuck. in the sweetness of experience. Don't fixate on experiences. Since Gampopa teaches that even in this phase we must be aware of fixating on experiences, it is vital not to block or promote or fixate in any way on experiences, be they good or bad. Even dormant aspects of not recognizing mind must be purified so that they are never apart from recognition. True mindfulness, or undistracted mindfulness transcending the intellect, is the root of meditation. Consequently, it is said that no matter what happens in life, you should plant the victory banner of meditation practice and take through to perfection the ordinary mind of undistracted non-meditation. That's a good conclusion, right? Regardless of all these fine, subtle distinctions, you should meditate. The exalted Sankagyari explains that the way to cultivate spiritual practice on the levels of lesser and intermediate non-meditation is the same as during one taste. The lower non-meditations are similar to one taste. Their spiritual practices are the same. The highest non-meditation is Buddhahood. It is free from all striving. The exalted Yonggunpa says, "Look, are the objects to be meditated upon in the mind-meditating dual right within awareness? Separate, non-dual awareness, or separate non-dual awareness from a support." Is separate spelled differently? That's wild. I never knew that. I never realized that. Separate and separate. Separate non-dual awareness from a support. Evenly sustained mind without mindfulness. There will come a time when meditation will flow day and night. Okay, don't hold your breath. He teaches that awareness in which the objects of meditation and the meditator are inseparable has no support and is without reference point. Evenly sustain the mind that is without mindfulness and without attentiveness, without grasping, let it be free-flowing. The meanings of non-mindfulness and non-attention were already explained. See page 313 to 16. In a general sense, something similar to non-meditation's continuous flow of meditative experience occurs during one-pointedness. Non-meditation's inseparability of the object of meditation and the meditator occurs during freedom from elaborations. Non-meditation's absence of meditative equipoise and post-meditative attainment, when whatever appears manifests as meditation, occurs during one taste. We should understand that those are types of meditative experience and why they are not the non-meditation of realization. Broadly speaking, the divisions of the four yogas must be explained through experience. They are much more difficult to present than other scriptural expositions. In particular, it is very difficult to explain the latter yogas when they have not arisen as mental objects. However, for these presentations, I've taken the instructions of the exalted Gompas, elder and younger, Gomso and Gomchung, as the basis, and relying on the teachings of earlier undisputed siddhas, I have discussed them in detail. That's a nice clarification of how he came up with these descriptions. In other words, he's saying that he has not achieved these. Not sure I believe that, but the summary of common key points, as previously cited, the Precious Garland, which is a wonderful text by Nagarjuna, says, as long as you cling to the skandhas, you will take them to be an I. If you believe in an I, you create karma. From karma, there will be birth. And the commentary on valid cognition, Pramanavartika by Dharma Kirti. If there is a self, other is cognized. From the pair of self and other come clinging and anger. The connections with these two produce all faults. Shantideva's entrance to the Bodhisattva's way of life, Bodhicharyavatara. Whatever harm there is in the world and however much fear and suffering there is, all comes from the belief in a self. What am I to do with this great demon? As stated, holding on to the belief in a self and other is the root of samsara. As long as we have not pacified our belief in a self, we repeatedly recreate it and circle like a water wheel, never becoming free from samsara. Some who desire liberation don't recognize that their belief in a self is the root of their karma and mental afflictions, and don't understand those are what are to be eliminated. Desiring to eliminate suffering, which is the result of karma and mental afflictions, they abandon unvirtuous actions and cultivate conditioned virtue, such as listening to and reflecting upon the Dharma, like we're doing now. However, if their attitude and behavior are flawed, it is uncertain what will result. Even if their attitude and behavior are excellent, that approach will not actually be able to pacify their belief in a self, though it may become indirect causes that are methods for pacifying a belief in a self. There are a few practitioners of meditation who state that the actual method for pacifying the belief in a self is to meditate on the lack of a self. However, by intensely generating certainty that holds on to non-existence, which negates clinging to existence, they increase their clinging and descend into a grand nihilistic view. It's an interesting view on meditation on non-self. So, does that mean that we should not meditate on the lack of a self? Any thoughts about that statement? Does this mean we should not do the meditations about selflessness?
Does it depend on where you are on the path at this point?
It doesn't say that.
So, this is an interesting section because I just noticed that that it does not appear in the outline. This section V, I believe it is, which is basically backing up to like a, kind of aerial view of key points. We sort of jumped out of the non-meditation and into an overview. But if you look at, I think it's page XXI of the outline, it seems like, oddly enough, this section, I tried to trace the various numerals, and it seems like somehow it's missed in the outline.
I'm looking at XXI, and I see it there, the summary of common key points.
Oh my goodness, do you have is there a different version perhaps?
XXI.
It's in my
So
book too, in the outline.
the top of XXI is a capital B, the way experiences arise.
Right. Yeah. And so then it goes down through, I see some, so it puts it in,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Okay. I see it there. I thought it was sort of stepping out further than that. So I was looking at a higher level. Okay. Got it. So this is still, it's sort of funny because it's still within the context of the 4 yogas, but it's kind of like a whole different perspective it's jumped to, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's the summary of the key points of the whole book, basically, right? Sue.
Well, the way he was talking about samsara not ending, and then he's talking about belief in a self. And so it's sort of like belief in the self, and so samsara won't end. But belief in the self is also belief in the other. And we're also talking about here about being a benefit to everybody. So in order to be a benefit to everybody, there has to be an everybody, an other. So I'm just thinking about this thing that I saw about sort of shamatha vipassana, and one being to balance out, like if you go, the senses, which he was just talking about the senses, they keep you having compassion for the other. It's through our senses that we see the other. So, and then if you're seeing the other and you contemplate on emptiness, that'll balance that out. But if you get too far off into the emptiness and you don't see the other, then you're being selfish until you've completely unified it all, in which case you've disappeared and nobody's gotten that far. So that's my thoughts.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you.
Probably not right, but
That's awesome. Anyone else? Mary Beth.
Well, I wonder if the problem is that you're holding, that it holds,
What is
that
it holding?
that you're holding on to non-existence.
Yeah,
Almost like
that appears that I would agree with that. That the problem is meditating on not on something that doesn't exist is not a way to achieve liberation. Meditating on the non-existence of something concretizes it as non-existent. Whereas to meditate genuinely on the topic of the self and the lack of existence of a self, one would meditate on trying to find the self and let go and not finding, as opposed to meditating on the conceptual finding of non-self. Non-self doesn't exist, and so to meditate on non-self is to meditate on something conceptual.
so is that though just kind of doing something? I mean, a lot of this was sort of talking about not doing anything. And
Yeah,
so it's sort of, by the time you get to non-meditation, I would think you would not be doing that
yeah.
somehow. And if you're doing something, he keeps saying, absolutely, if you think you're doing something.
Yeah, but that's not the problem here. The problem here is the fixation on a non-existent. It's a way of
The fixation.
a way of misunderstanding emptiness, as if emptiness is something you can cognize and meditate on.
Mm-hmm.
Because not doing was given up is given up at non-meditation, but the belief in a self is given up at freedom from elaborations. And so he clarifies it on the next page with this famous quote from Nagarjuna. Well, he attributes it to Saraha. But yeah, so let's continue. There are also some who desire good meditation practice. Some. Those silly people, how could those possibly be? And gain experiences in meditation, but because they fixate on those, they do not keep straight to the main path. That's a neat phrase. Straight to the main path, keeping straight to the main path. Instead, wander off into the four deviations and the three strains. Do you remember the four deviations and the three strains? That was given in the chapter Strains and Deviations. or deviations and strains. Clinging in meditative equipoise is the root of the deviations and strains. Clinging during the post-meditative mental states amasses karma and then becomes the cause for samsara. Therefore, since all faults and flaws are the result of entertaining mental fixations, it is crucial that we now fixate. You gotta fix that. No fixating. As the great Brahman Sarahouse says, if the mind that thinks this is attractive takes that to heart and cherishes it, even pain the size of a sesame seed husk will cause constant affliction. It's an interesting quote. And those who grasp at existence are like cattle. So those who believe things exist are silly like cows or ignorant like cows. While those who grasp at what doesn't exist are even more foolish. And that's what meditating on non-self is. It's grasping at what doesn't exist. It'd be like meditating on the self on one hand doesn't exist, and meditating on non-self doesn't exist. So what do you meditate on? Sue?
I'm sorry to keep saying things, but so where does the grasping come from? If it's here all the way, like what
The
is that?
$64,000 question.
Yeah. You get rid of everything but that. That's so sad.
Self. The self is what grasps.
Where does grasping come from? What's the birth of samsara?
Well, the grandmother grasping around.
If you could point to a time when it started, then we could figure out what started it. But there's no start to samsara. There's no beginning.
And no end.
Well, there's no
Evidently.
end to samsara in general, but there is end to samsara for an individual. There is enlightenment, and they put an end to their own suffering.
No more grasping at all.
No more grasping, yeah, no more grasping.
But not here yet.
Yeah, no meditation. We had that. That was the final description of Dharmakaya and Rupakaya. Down on 471 on the bottom. The two luminosities mix, become an infinite expanse of wisdom, and they achieve the two benefits, the Dharmakaya and the Rupakaya. Dharmakaya for oneself and Rupakaya for others. So back on 475, Sarha concludes, if you have an attachment, let it go. Zeke. Zeke or Zeke?
Thanks, Eric. Zeke. The question had arisen a few minutes ago, and it took me a little while to kind of sift through the text, whether this section is summarizing core points of the whole book or of the four yogas discussion. And because I had been confused about that when it came up, and I wanted to pause on it because it seemed like it gives some context to what we're doing here in this section and sort of useful to set my sights. I noticed that the next section continues specifically discussing the four yogas, and it sort of makes me think that that this section really is just I'm summarizing, though I'm never going to mention the word four yogas, it seems, in this entire section. Now I'm going to summarize the kind of pith of what I'm trying to get at about the four yogas, which is about not grasping. And I just wondered how other people kind of read this in the context of the overall architecture.
Yeah, to others not. Thank you for that. Any other thoughts? Summary of common key points. My take on that is that the word common means it's common to all four yogas, these points. Any other
But you don't think it could go even beyond the four yogas in the sense of being even inclusive of the larger path, like pre-four yogas, if there is, I mean, or or is everything contained within the, yeah, I mean, there's like time before you get to the beginning of one taste, right? Or beginning of one pointedness, sorry.
Yeah, that's a subtle question. I don't know. You could go either way. You could say like the minute you first ever start to meditate, you're beginning to cultivate lesser one pointedness.
Yeah. To
Or
me,
you could say,
because to me, it felt like there was this sort of slight sea change, um, and that's why it seemed like it was kind of jumping out to a bigger perspective. Um, but I realized that, yeah, that there's funny ways in which I guess it could still be contained in the framework.
yeah, seems to be focusing on attachment as the key issue, which applies to basically all stages of all paths.
Yes, certainly.
Anyone else?
Well, I was just thinking the four yogas seems like a consolidation and reduction of all these other, like the 10 boomies. And is that correct?
It's another way of summing up the entire path. That's correct.
Yeah.
Which we'll
So,
see in the next section.
That's what the next section goes directly into that
Yeah,
correlation.
yeah. Either way, it's a very nice, pithy, and profound presentation of non-attachment. What else, Zeke?
Well, the thing I can't figure out about this section and then sort of going ahead to the next session is like how kind of self subversive the whole thing is meant to be. I mean, kind of very articulately in the next section, he starts just being like, well, for anybody who needs a framework, I'll give you one. But there's this kind of sense that a lot of the distinctions and the boomies and things like that is sort of irrelevant to the real point of it. And so I think that's what's at stake for me in deciding whether this section is just talking about the four yogas or talking about some larger thing. Is like exactly what is he subverting kind of here is, and like how much is he reducing to the pith and kind of saying I don't, and I think I'm probably pushing it a little farther than he says it, but there's almost this tone of like, okay, well, I know we've gone through all these laborious distinctions, but just relax and stop clinging, and that's really all there is to know about anything. So I just kind of again wondered how people reflect on that.
That's the way I took it. It was like, yeah, there's all these distinctions and states that are like way far in some hoped for future, but a much more tangible and approachable point is non-attachment, non-clinging.
Yeah,
Who else?
definitely.
Someone else was, oh, Cynthia. Anyone else? Mary? Who else was about to say something?
well, I tend to distinguish experience from practice, meditating on whatever. And the experiences just tend to just pop up. They're not necessarily all these experiences, but it, when you have experience, you just know that's really it. And it's just an experience. It's hard to, and it's like, can you describe it? I don't know. I,
Yeah, it's amazing that they're, to the extent that he was able to describe these experiences the way
yeah.
he was. That was quite phenomenal. Okay, well, why don't we go on and then revisit this question as needed as we go through the remainder of this section. in the next section. If you have an attachment, let it go. For those reasons, it is taught that the sublime path for yogins and yoginis is to remain without any clinging, no matter what appears or what arises, be it visions in meditation, for those involving characteristics or without characteristics, or just normal appearances based on ordinary, latent tendencies. The exalted Gampopa states, whatever arises, do not cling at all. There is no higher place of offering than this supreme path, presumably meaning the path of non-clinging. It is taught that if we become accustomed to sustaining a state free from clinging, many excellent qualities will develop. The karmic appearances of our latent tendencies will be purified. Thoughts will simultaneously arise and be liberated. At that time, the stains of conceptual elaborations will not taint our mind stream. Whatever appears will be the play of the Dharmakaya, and so forth. So my hunch is that he's trying to counteract the state of mind that tries to determine exactly where they are in the four yogas and when they might get to the next one, or where other people are, just getting obsessive about the stages and characteristics, and just bringing it home to the main technique in all of Buddhism is not to cling. The exalted Gampopa teaches whatever can and does appear as a solidification of latent tendencies is pure in its own spot, without being abandoned, when you are accustomed to not clinging. Whatever your mind holds onto is a seed for characteristics. So as long as you're not clinging, you don't have to abandon. They're pure in their own spot, the latent tendencies. But if you hold on to even wonderful things, such as dharma or experiences, they become a seed for characteristics, meaning they become the karmic cause for other samsaric experiences. When you don't grasp at anything, arising and liberating are simultaneous, presumably arising and liberating of the kleshas, of the obscurations. And when your mind doesn't hold on to anything, no matter what appears, the stains of elaborations don't taint your mind stream, and not defiled for an instant by the stains of dualistic perception. Whatever there is itself the power of the Dharmakaya. He also says, when you don't evaluate, thoughts arise and release. When you don't have ambitions, everything is equal. When you realize that, your meditation is continuous. Since you have neither birth nor death, you are the king of transitions. Transitions generally means like dying. Since you don't cling to characteristics, luminosity is continuous. So yeah, wonderful concluding essence is not to cling to all of, not only this section on the four yogas, but all of the other stuff that he went through, clinging to all these different practices and ways of dealing with strains and deviations and pointing out and this and that. Any bit of it, if we cling to it, is going down the wrong path. If we cling to I'm looking at the nature of my mind, or resting in the nature of my mind. If we cling to that, then it's not helpful. The way liberation is attained when clinging subsides, when clinging to self internally and clinging to mind externally are extinguished. That stops the appropriated skandhas, which are the link with the next birth. When the skandhas that link with that next birth are extinguished, birth is extinguished. That being extinguished, karma and mental afflictions are extinguished, and liberation is attained. Zeke.
Never mind. I misheard. I had to check. I thought you said mind instead of, and it was mine. And that's much more interesting.
It's interesting, though, how the language of that section almost starts sounding like those initial sutras that we were reading. It sort of goes back to that, that whole quality of extinguishing and that kind of language.
Right, extinguishing, that word extinguishing is it's sort of a throwback to the early early phase of Buddhist teachings.
What does
Extinguishing.
appropriated skandhas mean?
Yeah, the appropriated skandhas. So, um, the idea, I think, with appropriated means that um, our karmic momentum propels us from one lifetime to another. And in each lifetime, we appropriate another set of skandhas. We have another body, i.e., form. We have a different personality.
So that's whatever lifetime you're in, it's the appropriated
Yeah,
of
and
a particular. Okay, very interesting.
it's a good question, though. Yeah, this phrase that stops the appropriated skandhas, which are the link with the next birth. So the skandhas that we appropriate in this lifetime create the link for the next set of skandhas that we appropriate.
So
That's the
if you
way.
stop appropriating those skandhas now,
That's right.
then
Stop
that's the
appropriating your
right.
skandhas.
Not so. Is that a little bit like
Don't cling to anything.
drop the self, give up hope and fears? Like, so it's all still going. It's just not you.
Yes, yeah, the karmic momentum will continue, but you haven't appropriated it.
You stop appropriating it.
And so there, as it says, when the skandhas that link with the next birth are extinguished, so meaning at death, those skandhas are extinguished. But if you've cut off the appropriation of them, then birth is extinguished.
So this
It's
is
an
sort of
interesting
the cutting
scheme,
the,
very interesting. Yeah, cutting the
think of the
12
Nidana scheme.
nidanas. Yeah,
That's, yeah.
right, a cutting out of between grasping and fixation. And then there's no birth is the next skandha, right?
And also, since the first line says the notions of I and mind, so that's also the ignorance step of the Nidanas too. That's cutting right there, as well as the, um, there's like two places to cut it, right?
Yep. Yeah. As Nagarjuna says in his famous book called The Fundamental Treatise on the Middle Way, when notions of I and mind are extinguished in relation to inner and outer, the appropriated skandhas cease. So he didn't use the word skandhas, and he did that because he's calling the skandhas that which is appropriated. And so it would be redundant. He's saying the skandhas, or you can say the appropriated ones, those appropriated things, they cease. Since those are extinguished, birth is extinguished. Since karma and afflictions are extinguished, there is liberation. Thus, the instructions that say no clinging, no fixation, no focus, no characteristic, no reference point, no blocking, no encouraging, no abandoning or adopting, no hope, no fear, no aims, all make the same critical point. Very different from crucial, critical. We should be certain exactly how they are to be applied. We must know that during each phase of the four yogas, it is key that while we are not distracted from our specific spiritual practices, we do not entertain any clinging. So, being disciplined about your practice but not clinging to it. That's easier said than done. Okay, finally C. So we do, in terms of the outline, we do go way back out to going back to page XXI C. So what was B? The divisions of the development and realization, how the realizations of the four yogas develop. Okay, so this is part 3 on the way realization develops through sustaining meditation, which is the last section of the book. It'd be cool to have like a very summary level outline. That would be neat.
You mean of the outline?
Yeah,
Well,
an outline of the outline.
if we could put it into Word, or it has a tool that allows you to do that
Yeah, I'll do that.
automatically
I have it in Word.
if it's set up right. I don't know. But you're right, it would be nice.
Yes, if you go back to the beginning of the outlines of text, you have part 1, why it's necessary to meditate. Part 2, the ways to cultivate samadhi. A, summarizing the samadhis. And then B, it looks like B is the explanation that elaborates upon the way to cultivate the uncommon. Mahamudra on page X11.
You think that's the B that comes before this C?
No,
No. Okay.
I think it's
sorry,
the
yeah. Okay.
I think it's the B that is the next major division in the book. I don't think there is a C.
Oh, you mean everything that we've done for a very long time has been all under that B?
I think so.
I guess. Wow.
I mean, unless deviations and strains might be, but the way that it's so indented implies
No,
that
it does look like I think you're right about that.
well, but that C is under the the way to sustain the practice of meditation.
Yeah, no, I think you are correct that there is no C after that B on.
But there's another B. Isn't
There are
there?
lots of B's, yeah.
Yeah,
But not at that level.
no.
I don't think so.
Chapter 5, chapter 9 has a B.
To be or
Ha.
not to be. Yeah, so let's come back to the text and we'll pursue the outline again later. So 477, how the bhumis and paths are traversed through those 4 yogas. Remember, there's 10 bhumis and there's 5 paths, right? Path of preparation or accumulation. Sorry, path of accumulation, path of joining, sometimes called path of preparation, and path of familiarization, path of seeing, sorry, is the 3rd path. Path of familiarization is 4th. And then path of no more learning is 5. So the first 4 paths are paths of learning. So accumulation, preparation, seeing, familiarization, no more learning. The exalted Gampopa, the uncle, and his nephews. So he was the uncle, Uncle Gampopa. And his nephews did not explicitly teach the correspondences between the 4 yogas of meditation and the bhumis and paths that are discussed within the philosophical yanas. I like that term. The exalted Gomso student, the Mahasiddha Zhang, however, says Mahamudra is itself attained in a single stride. The confused make the mistake of delineating it in terms of the bhumis and paths, but to indulge the confused. Thank you for indulging us. I will delineate substitutes for the bhumis and paths. of the philosophical vehicles. Even here, Mahamudra, the essence of Dharmata, is the path of a single stride. That's a big stride. Since Dharmata cannot be divided in terms of its essence, it is said that on the level of the definitive meaning, it is not possible to delineate the stages of bhumis and paths. The commentary on the entrance to the middle way observes, so entrance to the middle way is Chandrakirti's famous Madhyamaka Avatara, and he does have an auto commentary, which must be quoted from here. Observes, being of the nature of cognition, those bodhisattva bhumis cannot be divided by means of their own essences, since there's no essence, right? As is said in the Sutra on the 10 Bhumis, just as the wise cannot see or describe a track left by birds in the sky, the Bhumis of bodhisattvas cannot be described. Thus, how can they be heard of? Zeke.
This question is coming out of my ignorance of the body of the text. I'm sorry, I'm working this class from both ends of the book, but I haven't gotten to the middle yet. Have we encountered textual support for the idea that Mahamudra is about a single stride? Because
No.
that seems pretty strikingly dissonant with everything that we've talked about and discussed. I mean, I just wanted to stop there and spend some wondering time.
Yeah, well, I think he's going to explain it now, but I have not seen it previously in the text. Does anyone else feel otherwise? What do you think he means by single stride?
I'm guessing that he's saying it's the last step when all of the, obscurations are gone, but
Eric,
I keep thinking, and maybe this is a heretical view, that
that's the
it's not
problem, thinking.
it's not even yes, right. It's not even a question of you can't correlate the bhumis and paths with the four yogas. It's more that all of those divisions completely are in, there was some term that was used, the final view or the ultimate view or something, are
Definitive
simply
meaning.
definitive meaning. Yeah, in the definitive meaning, they're all just kind of manners of speaking. And the single stride sounds more like I don't know. To me, it sounds, I don't know whether it relates to practice or theory, but it seems to say not to take the idea that you're on a ladder too seriously. And in fact, I think there is a quote somewhere about how you're not actually on a ladder, about the actually about the four yogas.
Thank you. That's great. Get off that ladder. So let's see. Single stride, meaning like it's a short distance. The path of Mahamudra is a short path. It takes one stride. That could be one sense of, I'm being playful, right? What are the possibilities of single stride?
it could just be that it's a momentary but I think those two can combine. I mean, it may be that it's sort of what we think of as the last step, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is preceded by, like, all of these other stages. Those are all these constructs, as Eric was sort of saying as well. There's all these different constructs people have done to create ladders and frameworks and all that stuff, but that it could happen at any time, I think, is really the truth, depending on the causes, conditions, blessings, teachers, whatever you have, that momentary occurrence could happen at any moment.
Okay, good. So let's see. Because the nature of cognition, being of the nature of cognition, those bodhisattva movements cannot be divided by means of their own essence, because they're mind only. Of the nature of cognition. Just as the wise cannot see or describe a track left by birds in the sky, the Bhumis of Bodhisattvas cannot be described. Thus, how could they be heard of? Uh, like, what is it like? The path of birds in the sky. What is the line from the sun?
Like the imprint of a bird in the
Like
sky?
the imprint of a bird in the sky. Yeah. So this is the source of that nice famous line from the Son of Mahamudra. It's from this sutra of the 10 bhumis, Dasha Bhumika Sutra. And it's a famous line that's quoted in many places. But the path has no essence, so how can you divide nothing into parts? The commentary on the text, The Ornament for Clear Realization, which is Abhisamaya Alankara by Maitreya, states in that commentary would be by a Sangha, because something different from what has been actualized on the path of seeing is not observed. What is actualized on that path of seeing?
The experience of emptiness?
Yeah, so is the experience actualized? This term actualized is a little odd. I would say like the wisdom that understands emptiness was actualized. Something like that. But I would, similar to what you said, that whatever it is that's actualized on the path of seeing when emptiness is realized non-conceptually, the paths of seeing and meditation are not different. Thus, the true path of meditation is not presented. Okay? Those statements accord with the explanation that there are no divisions in terms of the essence. Nonetheless, for those with confused minds who think, how are the bhumis and paths crossed through the practice of meditation? As Jean Rinpoche says, I will delineate the equivalents of bhumis and paths in the four yogas using the bhumis and paths of the philosophical yogas. How they are delineated, the same person, Jean Rinpoche, concludes, the full development of realization is the path of seeing, the bhumi of very joyful. Familiarization with the realization of equal taste is the path of meditation. Once there is no meditation, that is the path of perfection. So he correlates three of the four yogas with different paths. So the freedom from elaborations is equivalent to the path of seeing and the first bhumi, and one taste is equivalent to the path of familiarization, and non-meditation is the path of no more training. His explicit presentation is that the arising of the realization of non-duality or unification is the path of seeing, and the first bhumi, being accustomed to that, is the path of meditation, and the second bhumi through the 10th. Non-meditation is the path of perfection, and the bhumi of Buddhahood. He does not provide an explicit correlation for freedom from elaborations. He doesn't mention it. That's interesting. We may think, is freedom from elaborations considered the path of seeing in the first bhumi? If that is the case, then by implication, one-pointedness is the path of preparation. So this is Kwashe Nam Gyal, his way of interpreting this quote. The exalted Sant Vigare teaches, even though the path does not require bhumis and the like, if they are to be presented, they should be asserted as follows. The offering of mandalas is the path of accumulation. The development of experiences is the path of preparation. Freedom from elaborations is the path of seeing. The dawning of realization is the path of meditation. One taste is the 8th bhumi. Boing. Non-meditation is the 11th, i.e. bhumi, the path of perfection. It's a very interesting correlation of Vajrayana practices with Sutrayana scheme of the path. So, path of accumulation is the offering of mandalas, which is a specific practice that's part of what's called the Nundro introductory Vajrayana practices in the Tantric system of Tibetan Buddhism. But I think it should be understood here more generally as like the accumulation of merit is the path of accumulation, and merit and wisdom. And then the experience of merit and wisdom, I guess, or it doesn't say what type of experiences, but anyway. Thus, Tashinam Gil returns, thus he considers that starting with the preliminary practices, gathering the accumulations and purifying negative actions are the path of accumulation. One-pointedness is the path of preparation. One-pointedness is the path of preparation. Freedom from elaborations is the path of seeing. Beginning with the dawning of the realization of unification, all of one taste is the path of meditation. Beginning with the dawning of the realization of unification, that's different than just saying the eighth bhumi. The beginning with the dawning of a realization of unification, that refers to one taste. All of one taste is the path of meditation, which goes from bhumis 2 to 10. Lesser and intermediate non-meditation are the 9th and 10 bhumis.
Is
So
the unification that he's talking about here, is that possibly the unification of equipoise and post-meditative attainment?
that would be my understanding, yeah.
Okay.
Let's see, lesser and intermediate non-meditation are the 9th and 10th bhumis. Greater non-meditation corresponds to the 11th bhumi, the path of perfection. The Exalted Gu Sangpa says, gathering accumulations in the life is the path of accumulation. The bhumi of beginners. One-pointedness is the path of preparation, and the bhumi of engagement through belief. Freedom from elaborations is the path of seeing, and the first bhumi. One taste is the second bhumi through the 7th, and lesser and intermediate non-meditation are the 3 remaining ones, meaning bhumis, all of which are the path of meditation. So lesser and intermediate are 8, 9, and 10. Greater non-meditation is the path of perfection, the bhumi of Buddhahood. The bhumi of beginners, I like that at the first line. So there's an acknowledgement that the beginner is on the path of accumulation, which sounds sort of obvious, but is not always
One
clear.
question is in where it says the one taste is the 2nd through the 7th, and oh, I'm sorry, and then the next one, the path of meditation goes from the 1st through the
2nd through the 10th.
I'm sorry, 2nd through the 10th. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, so when he says all of which.
Right. I misread it to think that he was only talking about part of that. Sorry. So they agree on some things. Some of them,
They generally are agreeing on this correlation.
the
Some
path of
divide
seeing they seem to all agree on.
the 12 levels of the 4 yogis into those of experience and those of realization, making 24 divisions. Why not? Why not make it very complicated? How about like affiliated with the 24 hours of the day? The 12 yogas of experience correspond to the 4 levels of the path of preparation. The 12 yogas of experience correspond to the 4 levels of the path of preparation. Okay. Of the 12 yogas of realization, the 3 levels of one-pointedness correspond to the first 3 bhumis. Wow, this is complicated. The 3 levels of freedom from elaborations correspond to the 4th, 5th, and 6th bhumis. This one is very different. The 3 levels of one taste correspond to the 7th, 8th, and 9th bhumis, and 3 levels of non-meditation correspond to the 10th bhumi through the 12th. Zeke.
Just want to check something with you guys. I read this as him profoundly not caring about this. Like, right? He's just like, look, if you want me to do this, we can. But like a few paragraphs later, he's just gonna again sort of say, well, this is, it's pretty relevant. It's like, do you think he wants us to really take on this stuff? Because I feel like he's paying lip service to it in order to kind of have a leg of his argument against Sakya Pandita. But to us, he just wants us to bypass it. What do you all think?
I think he needs charts to understand this. I mean, to just put it out, it's like a verbal chart, and like a spreadsheet might be handy.
I think that he's going to leave us to do. But I think that in a sense, I think he kind of gave the view at the beginning with the single stride discussion. And then, but that he then said, because some people want to know about it and it's been talked about, here you go. Here's all the different views on it.
It's sort of leaping ahead, Zeke, because he does give his own opinion at the end, right? He says, there are many such teachings, the meaning of which can be summarized as follows on page 483. The excellent qualities of the bhumis and paths taught in the philosophical yanas are intentionally ambiguous, right? Since those excellent qualities in the paths are not identical, the signs of the paths are not identical in the same way the Shravakas are ornamented and unornamented, which is a reference to an obscure system of there being arhats that are ornamented and not ornamented. The bodhisattvas are renowned and unrenowned, which is a reference to the way of dividing bodhisattvas between the first 7 bhumis and the latter 3. Great meditators, due to the different degrees of their previous purification and strengths, appear variously. Some develop miraculous powers in this life, and some do not. The achievement of excellent qualities such as miraculous powers requires exertion in the mundane paths and the mantra paths. And I think his whole discussion of not clinging was a setup to this section. It was like, remember, non-clinging is the point. So we're going to go into a whole topic where you could get really caught up in clinging to categories and levels and status and all sorts of things. But remember, do not cling. This completes the explanation of the divisions of the 4 yogas and how the bhumis and paths are traversed through those 4 yogas. This concludes the explanation of the way to cultivate Mahamudra, the definitive meaning. And that concludes the book. Should we skip like that or go back to what?
No, we should go back because we left off where he says, my thoughts about this are as follows. That's where we left off, and you jumped to the very end.
Yeah, you got me. Okay, my thoughts about this are as follows. The paths presented in the philosophical yanas, which are traversed in stages, are designated in terms of excellent qualities, a mode of appearance, qualities, characteristics. Here, the meditative path of intrinsic equality, which is traversed in a single stride, is designated in terms of the natural essence. Ultimately, they are the same, even though on a temporal level they manifest in dissimilar ways. They differ in that the philosophical yanas are presented from the perspective of awakening after 3 incalculable aeons. How long is that? It's incalculable. And here, once the interdependent connections have been gathered, awakening occurs without many births intervening. In an analogy can be found in ordinary roads with the differences between main highways and shortcuts. Nevertheless, a rough correlation can be made in terms of the equivalence of boomings and paths as follows. The period from entering the path through the three levels of one-pointedness is the path of accumulation and the booming of beginners. The three levels of freedom from elaboration are the path of preparation and the booming of engagement through belief. Wow. The three levels of one taste and lesser and intermediate non-meditation are the paths of seeing and meditation, and the first booming through the 10th. Interesting. He gives one taste. Starts at the path of seeing. Okay. So he pushes back freedom from elaborations into the path of preparation. Very interesting. Greater non-meditation is the path of perfection and the booming of Buddhahood. Those designations are clearly excellent. It is difficult to delineate a dividing line between greater freedom from elaborations and lesser one taste, and between greater one taste and lesser non-meditation. Yet, if we look at the present-day explanations in light of the stages of the 12 yogas during greater freedom from elaborations, there is not the slightest bit of the true realization of unification, equal taste. Without that, it is somewhat uncomfortable to designate freedom from elaborations as the path of seeing and the first booming. Since Dharmata has not been properly realized, learned ones, please examine this matter again. He's talking to me because I was the one that just said that, right? That's cool. Okay. Point taken. However, we may wonder, is that in keeping with the teachings of the exalted Tsongkhapa and Good Songpa? When they correlate freedom from elaborations to the first booming, they have in mind the completion of freedom from elaborations. Oh, he's going to have to correlate these, syncretize these, right? At that point, since all fixations on experiences such as grasping and emptiness have been purified and the realization of equal taste unification has arisen, it must be considered one taste. When present-day explanations designate lesser and intermediate freedom from elaborations as the path of seeing, I think it is difficult to consider the experiences of those two levels as equivalents of the first booming. Now, a certain person A states, some say there are four. One-pointedness, freedom from elaborations, one taste and non-meditation. One-pointedness is the path of seeing. Wow. Freedom from elaborations continues through the seventh booming. One taste is the three pure boomings, and non-meditation is the booming of Buddhahood. Wow. And concludes, this correlation contradicts all the sutras and tantras. Oh, so he's quoting other people and saying that it's wrong. Although he makes this refutation, I have not seen that the renowned previous masters of the practice tradition teach that way. Even if there is such a teaching, there are many forms of the four yogas correlating the four yogas to the realization of emptiness, to the bhumis of baths in terms of their congruent qualities, does not have the flaw of contradicting the sutras and tantras, because the sutras and tantras do not say that such correlations are impermissible. His depiction does not complement the conventional designations of the present day because it is not found in the sutras and tantras. Also, this sutra, certain persons, Sakyapandita says, to assert that the path of seeing arises in this life, but its excellent qualities manifest after death, is the fiction of fools. To say that the explanation that those who attain the path of seeing do not attain the 12 sets of 100 excellent qualities of the first bhumi in this life, but do attain them in the next, is the fiction of fools, simply reflects his desire to say something critical, while at the same time not being certain. That was given as the reason for a previous quote by this same person. The reasons are as follows. There is no teaching that those who attain the path of seeing immediately attain its excellent qualities when they have not departed from this life. The teaching that a special feature of that birth, that is, the one after attaining the path of seeing, being that it is most likely to be as a Chakravartin king, is in reference to attainments of future lives, not what is attained in this life. Where the Chakravartin king part come from. For example, someone who attains the path of seeing in a female form, does not change her physical body into that of a Chakravartin king when she has not departed from this life. That implies that Chakravartin kings are all of the other gender, I guess. If those who attain the path of seeing must be able to actually display the whole extent of the excellent qualities described for the first bhumi, it would be necessary to say, without even considering Indian and Tibetan pundits and siddhas, that none of the bodhisattvas in the teacher's retinue attained the bhumis, such as the path of seeing. And yet that is not what happened. The Sutra on the 10 Bhumis teaches that it is most likely that those who attain the first bhumi will be born in their next life as a Chakravartin king. Wow. At that time, having renounced their home and become monastics, they dwell in forests and attain the 12 sets of the 100 excellent qualities, such as 100 samadhis. Since the text says it is most likely, it is not certain that that will be the case for everyone. Those who think otherwise seem not to have applied their intelligence to this and related teachings. It would be a grave mistake to imply that the Sutra on the 10 Bhumis is the fiction of fools. So we're over time. So Zeke, and then we'll close at that point at the bottom of page 481.
Sorry, I know I've had my hand up a lot. This is really important, right? I mean, there's a way that I'm not sure I can articulate very well, but the basic sense is his conversation with Sakyapandita is a huge, like the stakes of his ability to respond to Sakyapandita is like enormously important for what the meaning of this entire book is, right? I feel like we're not really talking about it, but I think if I'm getting it right, that the subtext here is like he's trying to say that there's something like this sudden enlightenment, right? This like single stride kind of Mahamudra that is in some ways like going back to the dispute to what's his name, shoot, the names are just going to say the Huineng, the great Tibetan disputation between Kamalashila and the sort of Chan monk. There's an enormous background question here of whether it's Mahamudra means that we are just actually already non-meditating, or whether Sakyapandita is right that there's all of these levels and all of this stuff. And this is all very indirect, this chapter, but it seems to me he's trying to make some really, really important points and try to draw our attention subtly to something that is very meaningful about all this. Do people share that?
Mary Beth does.
I mean, I hadn't thought about that way, but it does seem like he's maybe making a distinction between the path of Mahamudra being like asking something a little different of us than what those other paths ask of us somehow. And that it's more direct because we're right off the bat talking about our mind and our thoughts and how complicated it is to understand all this stuff, but like that's really the crux of it, maybe not all the lists. Is that
Eric?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's kind of like it's almost like the rest of Dharma teachings that we're already here, for one of just a shorthand, that we're already whatever it is that we are, and it's just a question of us realizing that. Hence the term realization. And there are all these, like, there's experiences that people have had that, I mean, I won't say it's all academic. I doubt it. They're experiences that meditators have had that that eventuate in having these stages of various kinds, of various schemes written down. And since there are various versions of stages, then there are also attempts to correlate them, which makes sense too. And to the extent that all that kind of way of thinking of things is helpful to us, that's why we have this. But nonetheless, because we're already here, there is the possibility that none of it is like linear, particularly, really. And we have glimpses of all kinds of things all the time. And there is the possibility, just like there's a possibility we could walk through the wall, technically speaking, we could also just suddenly be here.
That was a funny last line. We could all just suddenly be here. Here we are.
Yeah, well,
But do you mean, and having leaped that single stride?
that's, I think that's what what the metaphor of leaping a single stride. It was like chutes and ladders, like suddenly, like, you have a glimpse of all the stuff cleared away. And it's a question of how long the glimpse lasts for, which for me, is like infinitesimally non-existent, but there's the possibility.
Cool. Thank you. Christopher.
I've been thinking, if we have no self, do we have free will?
Oh, that's a
That's
simple
a big
topic.
question, right?
That's a really simple topic. We should probably answer that tonight. It's very quick, right? Should we vote on that? Who thinks we have free will?
I don't, this is like the whole history of Christianity.
Who
It's
thinks
like
we
the,
don't? Who
yeah,
thinks we don't have free will?
I don't think it's both.
No, you can't say both.
And then you get into, well, then how do you define it?
Is it grasping?
Yes, all of it is grasping. All of these discussions are grasping. Zeke, bring it home for us so we can end. You're
I,
muting.
I just the Kamala Shila and Huinang, I think is right. I'm the
We
the
name is the sixth patriarch, so you're thinking of
shoot
um,
who
Mahoyan,
who's there in Tibet with
Washon Mahayana.
okay. So that debate just looms so large in my own experience of this stuff, and I just kind of want to like sit to put that out there for everybody. On some level, we know we're all here. We know we're all already non-meditating. Another level, we spend hundreds of dollars for levels and boomies and stuff. And
That's pretty cheap.
right, and
Wow,
and
hundreds of dollars. I'm there,
and
man.
and it's
Where can I do
huge.
that?
I mean, Sakya Pandita's voice should like haunts my reading of this book. Because is it really just a stride? Are we actually just doing it? Can we really live a life where we see that as true? Is that just some kind of weird, I think the subtext is sort of Taoist,
But there's
non-Buddhist
I think
thing.
there's alternative ways of understanding this single stride. You
Yeah.
are understanding the single stride as implying that it's very close.
Well, I think that's why he needs to defend this view against Sakya Pandita, because he's coming close to a kind of Chan. It's
I
just
didn't get
already
that
there.
from him. I
No?
didn't get that. When he describes his single stride, he describes it in a different way. He describes it it's a single stride because all of the conventional is without essence, and so how can he uses the bird in space
But then he
analogy.
kind of says, well, it's just this temporal, just seen temporally, of course, we need to take these steps. But, in the really relative thing, we kind of know it's already. I mean, that's a question to me. Just how off the deep end is he really willing to go in this last chapter? It's sort of, it's not about a path and there's no path. And what do we do with that? I think is really that I find that very personally vexing in a very productive way.
So at the bottom of 477, after he introduces the single stride and quotes from various sources, those statements accord with the explanation that there are no divisions in terms of essence. Nevertheless, for those with confused minds who think, how are the bhumis and paths crossed through the practice of meditation? Jean Rinpoche says, I will delineate the equivalence, blah, blah, blah. So he seems to be giving his own view that the single stride is a reference to the fact that there are no divisions in the essence. And not going back to sudden enlightenment. But it is an interesting question. And I hope Sakya Pandita will haunt your dreams tonight in particular. What else?
Where did we stop?
The bottom of 481, right, I think. Is that what it was? Bottom of 481. It would be a grave mistake to imply that the Sutra on the 10 Bhumis is the fiction of fools. That would open up a huge can of worms, right? If you said that that sutra was not accurate, then it's like, well, are all sutras not accurate? Then we're in a mess of suffering. A mess. Shall we dedicate and close? By this merit, may all attain omniscience, may defeat the enemy wrongdoing from the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. By the confidence of the golden sun of the great east, may the lotus garden of Rigden's wisdom bloom. May the dark ignorance of sentient beings be dispelled. May all beings enjoy profound, brilliant glory. Thank you, everyone. Great to see you. So next week we'll wrap it up and finally we'll dive into the Mahamudra, Eliminating this Darkness of Ignorance by Wangchuk Dorje. Have a great week. Everyone take care. Bye.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.